Hello, time for the thought project. Just so you know, I thought we'd do a change of pace today, and I would do the show sitting. And I've got a little bit of Florence and the Machine song "My Love" here at the beginning. So I hope you're all doing well. Put this a little closer, yeah, so you can see her better. They're just looking at me sitting here then. Okay, that's enough. I'm not gonna just sit here and like look at my notes and play Florence and the Machine the song "My Love." I think she actually wrote that song. Like they're one of those bands that I take them seriously as artists. Think they do their own at work. I mean, you kind of have to figure she probably is, considering she's actually like literally doing her own like ha! Noises and all that stuff. That's not really typical of pop singers that are synth pop per the Russian mafia. In fact, if I remember correctly, Dan was being really rude to me like 4 years ago when I got beat up, and that was actually one of the things he complained about, is he hated Florence the Machine because she was so obviously not part of the Russian mafia and their music was so obviously theirs. So anyways, I'm going to start out with a topic about what is resilience. Honestly, when I did an episode back in April 2023, and it was episode 11 that month, I noticed I ironically named the episode on resilience, right? There was an entire episode on it. It's just been interesting because I've noticed over the past months that pretty much all the articles coming out on the U.S. economy are talking about it, resilience, and saying it's very resilient, very resilient. It's like, I don't know. I think I created an accidental catchphrase that I picked up working in healthcare. And as a lot of people know, I worked in healthcare for 5 years, and I'm also a mandated reporter. And once you've been a mandated reporter, you're always a mandated reporter. And a lot of what that means is that you're stuck, you're stuck kind of reporting on abuse issues and anything else. And also, I'm just aware of regulatory issues. So, for example, in any situation you provide care, and that's care of any kind at all, you have to have mandatory drug testing in the facility. If you take a job that is any kind of care component and there's no mandatory drug testing, the place is liable to be raided or shut down, or you're liable to be blamed for something simply because you took a job with no drug testing and you were supposed to know that. And it's kind of unfair because in different states and regions that may not be applied locally, but it is a federal law. So I'm just putting it in here so people know that. And I think it's definitely important to kind of look at, as people are making choices and we're looking at shopping for the holidays and everything, you're going to find that what the resilience is for most Americans is just their total will to just keep going forward no matter what the circumstances. Like, even I don't know where I'm going to be, in the future, but I mean, people just keep moving on because the rest of it's just become too crazy, right? With COVID still sort of rolling along. And then, there's all these different issues with a couple different wars right now, right? The world, and the fact that we're still sort of amping up on our issues with China at the same time. That's the U.S. military. Like, it's just, and it's affecting the U.S. economy and U.S. citizenship, and you have the issues at the border. So it's kind of all playing into one big weird thing. I have to note that Hezbollah has refused to escalate on the issues with Hamas and Israel. Good for them. I think most people should stay out of it. I wouldn't even discuss the issue with people that came up. I just don't want to have that discussion because it's too volatile. And I think a lot of it is that, when you look at Israel, the IDF killed Ahmed Sam over the last weekend, and who had held 1,000 Gaza residents hostage at Rastisi Hospital. I don't even know if I'm saying this guy's name right. I almost think I need to go look it up. Let's make sure I got it right. Right? Yep, Ahmed Siam. So, but he's been killed, and I think it makes sense that Hezbollah has just decided to stay out of it. Like, that's really what any of the rest of us would do. Um, Obviously, the United States government has gotten involved, but for people individually, whatever's going on, that's probably the best thing to do as far as your own personal life. If you'd even take my advice, maybe for you it's not. But anyways, I gotta go to flip to a more pertinent story right now. And this is a really weird one, but it's a situation with New York Mayor Eric Adams. It's really tricky. Basically, the FBI agent seized his phones and iPads from Mayor Eric Adams on Friday as part of an investigation into a work fundraising around the campaign. I really like Mayor Adams. He stood up in the issues with Meghan Markle acting out over the summer. And also, he basically chose to, speak out on the migrant issue, which is really important. It just looks really bad for him to be in trouble now all of a sudden. It looks like retaliation on the part of some of these other people, like that agency on Hollywood or some of the people who are in favor of the migrant groups. Like, it really looks bad. Um, so I think the agency really needs to be careful of what they're doing. But some more information has been released on the issue, essentially, that, you have to look at the situation with Meghan Markle because she's been disowned as royals, and there's a potential that she's actually a terrorist of some kind roaming around New York like that. Like, that's how people see things today. It really isn't through the lens of like the 90s when we just looked at celebrities and thought they were just cute people who bopped around and were silly. The governments come to see them very differently here in the US and in other countries. So here's the thing. It's now been released as information that essentially they were upset with this other company. So I'm going to flip to that because I put this all together. There's a company called KSK, and they owe $400,000 in fees to New York City and the city's Environmental Control Board in penalties off 256 violations since 2004, and around safety penalties and luxury condo projects in Williamsburg, a harbor, a Harlem Mall, and a Korean Cultural Center in Manhattan. And it's an offshoot of the Kiska Construction Company. And it's kind of important to note that there's been a number of filings against them. It's just a really, really strange situation. But here's the thing. It kind of looks like the investigation is really because of that company. And there's not really a tie together yet. It's just they're being fined, and then he's spoken as their issues, and all of a sudden his fundraising is being investigated as to where his money comes from. So seems like a good guy to me, but I hope everyone's doing things the right way because it looks really bad for him to be under investigation right now, considering that he did the right thing with that company because he's not interfering with them having to pay penalties. And I mean, they supposedly build these crazy condominiums, and there's all kinds of safety issues. Like, that seems like something that would need to be penalized, right? Or at least, right? Anyways, Representative Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, I saw on Sunday that he has put a stopgap measure in place to keep the federal government going. So that's pretty good news. I've just been back to something in my life, which is that one thing about court issues and like people trying to make money that way and fees and all of it is that you have to be very careful to not be the person who's out there doing frivolous lawsuits because you can be sued for that in court. And then courts can also get in trouble for bringing people to court for frivolous reasons. So it's really not okay to just bring somebody who's basically a law-abiding citizen into court and then get upset with them. And then you have like actual hardened criminals and methamphetamines and murderers running around. And there's all this weird child abuse cases. Like, it looks really, really bad. It can go both ways. So you don't want to be like, Sergeant Wilhelm got in trouble a lot because they brought about for frivolous lawsuits. And they oftentimes would try to get out of being in trouble as felons by trying to be sued instead, which you can't choose. You can't choose to just be sued instead of being held accountable for murder in the U.S. And also as a court, you can't spend a lot of time pursuing people. Like, you can be penalize yourself as a court if you go after people for things that are petty and not really that important. So, and that's something I think, a number of courts actually in the US have gotten in trouble for that, especially in like smaller areas in different states. So, there's always the issue of like superfluous, frivolous behavior in the court system that has to be controlled and stopped. And, was much hot topic in the 2000s, but it's still a current day issue, right? Because there's some people that are migrants to the U.S. or immigrants, especially the Russian mafia, that don't really understand that. Because in Russia, people just go to court all the time, and none of it even makes sense. So, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal, right? So, I just have to note, looking through all this right here, as far as traffic for the show, we're at the United States is at 38%, United Kingdom is 6%, Australia is at 2%, male is at 44%, female is at 55% gender identified, 25 to 34 years at 24%, 35 to 44 years at 32%, and 45 to 54 years at 12%. And you have to also look, I saw some stuff that was really interesting here. Basically, the NFC, the Eagles are at 8-1. I don't know why the NFL stuff has become such a big deal this year, but it really has. And the Detroit Lions are at 6-2. Dallas Cowboys at 5-3. San Francisco 49ers at 5-3. And the Seahawks are at 5-3. And then at the AFC, the Chiefs at 7-2. Ravens at 7-3. Jaguars 6-3. Dolphins 6-3. And Steelers at 6-3. And then you have to note that Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and Baltimore came over and joined the AFC. They were part of the old NFL. So whatever that's worth, because they're not even like featured here, but I mean the Ravens are, sorry. So like the Ravens could have potentially been in competition in the MSC, right? The Steelers are down there too. So like two of the major I like to do that. Two of the major players in the AFC are actually like in it and could have been in the other one. Could have been in the NFC, but they were moved over. How about that? So I have no idea what that would mean for economics. As far as people attending games or watching them, there's certainly a lot of merchandise being sold around who's going to be potentially, the good teams this year. Like either Detroit Lions are selling more merchandise this year. So I have to talk about this for a second. I look at, this is a big deal. Moody's took our credit rating, U.S. credit rating, and basically, they've been downgrading our credit from stable to negative. And it was criticized for President Joe Biden. People are not happy about this. And they're saying it has to do with debt affordability in the U.S. So they're saying U.S. citizens have too much debt. I don't know about immigrants or other groups, but U.S. citizens have too much debt. So they put our credit rating down to unstable, basically. Or negative as opposed to stable. Anyways, I had to talk about personal spending habits for a second, because there was one thing about my mom that I noticed. She was really good with her money, but there was one thing she spent too much on was nails. Like I have a thing with I just cut my nails off and like file them and keep them clean. That's the cheapest way to go about your nails. I looked at my spending habits years ago and realized I hardly spent on anything. But the one thing that always really got me in trouble, I think at least part of the time, was my nails. Because back then I was in the DC area and I was still trying to buy these really expensive manicures, like 50, 60 bucks a lot. And then there's someone they go for like $200. Which is just a crazy amount of money to spend on your nails, and then to end up with like, what do you have afterwards? Because you don't even have an investment. It's not even like a pair of shoes or a plate that you could use again. I mean, the nails just wear out and you gotta get new ones. So it's really important to like, my piece of advice for somebody who's kind of been through it and suffered through some things is that, let go of the stuff that really isn't that important, because nails are definitely one you can drop. And save money. And like dollar store makeup is definitely like the way to go if you can. So anyways, those are the two areas where I think women get in trouble financially that I just offer advice on. And if you can skip dyeing your hair, that's another way to save. I dye mine a little bit, but not that much anymore. I just kind of let it be natural. So anyways, I think that's kind of it today. Oh, we gotta talk about this. This is really weird. So there's an AI version of a new song with Britney Spears. Let me see if I can find it for you. Here it is. Hopefully they'll just play it and it's not like... Oh, no, wait, that's not it. Nope, that's a different one. Somebody's been making really funny, like, AI covers of her songs. Not her song, sorry. I'll explain in a second. I just have to find this. Basically, she's doing funky songs that don't really, okay. Like her last song doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's kind of funky, okay? But somebody has been making covers with her voice. It's somebody called Britney's Wife. And it's a cover. She's doing the song Houdini. And I just have to go into this. It's actually good when Britney does it, when they use her voice. She didn't actually sing it. This is AI Britney. But that's artificial intelligence. So, but the funny, I mean, sometimes, like I said, sometimes AI gets it right. Sounds better. The other person who's got the song right now is a singer by the name of Dua Lipa, who's just terrible. She stole like 2 albums worth of material from me through her people, and I was able to cut them off finally. But you're looking at a situation where she's basically failing in her career now. And this video is just gross for the song. I mean, she's just feeling herself up. And it really caused you to think, you know, there was a place for lyric dancers, ballet dancers, and like strippers. This woman's just out on YouTube, like feeling herself up, and the dancing is pretty bad. And then worse, I noticed that the dancing actually came from an episode I had done of dancing earlier in the summer in some of their show episodes. So she's just picking up tips from me, and she's not even paying me again. But still, I don't have to deal with weird abusive people in my face demanding material. Like, she's just going to my YouTube channel to get it. So do I even care if somebody made a song with Houdini and Britney Spears voice singing it? No. I don't think else would either. Just too much more material's been stolen from other people. And her voice is actually a combination of 2 other singers. I'm talking about Dua Lipa. So, you know, and of course she's been sued recently fairly successfully. But there was a theory, you know, because Patricia had been after Britney Spears, and she's had so much abuse that they just basically injured Britney Spears' career to bring in, like, Dua Lipa, a couple other people that are tied in the Russian mafia, I guess. I don't know. But it didn't seem totally implausible. So. I like the Britney version. They should play this on the radio. Britney should go and actually sing this. Put it in the top 40. By the way, the song Houdini itself, so this is really weird because Wilhelm and seriously had some kind of effect on this when I was talking to the guy that was doing all of Dua Lipa's stuff. Houdini was a magician who actually died in 1926 in Detroit. So it's really weird. And he's from Budapest, born March 24th, 1874. I'm even looking at the clothing colors on her video. She just pulled a lot of stuff from my style, which is just weird. I mean, not entirely because it looks really tacky, but I don't look like that. But the colors and stuff, the dancing, yeah, she definitely pulled it off of me. So, and then there's just the fact that it's bad. But the Houdini song itself, especially with her singing performer, it looks psychotic, and she looks more and more like a mental patient in the video. There's certain stylistic elements she took that had nothing to do with my stuff that make her look that way. Anyway, so I don't feel like singing today. I think I go and actually got an appointment, but I'm just letting you know because there's this sort of interest, you know, it's like interesting, right? Like it sounds better. It's actually a good song that Britney Spears should have had. People would have liked hearing her perform it, I think, with her voice, right? It's AI doing it. But anyway, so that's the show for today. I hope you enjoyed the thought project, just so you know, and have a good one.